Welcome to episode 23 of the Loane Hockey Podcast. And today, what we're going to be talking about is zone exits. And zone exits are a big component to a team's offense and the structure behind not only a team's offensive game, but being able to get out and being able to break out of the zone. It's very important when talking about zone exits and the ability to break out with not only efficiency, but leading that to be able to transition with efficiency and then gain offensive zone possession with efficiency as well. So, zone exits, in a sense, they can link together a lot of things because the more likely a player and a team is able to get out of their own zone with possession of the puck, it could be through a pass or a carry, whatever it may be, then the more likely they are at being able to gain the offensive zone with possession. And the same thing goes for unpossessed sequences where on exits, there's uncontrolled exits, and they're more likely to lead to uncontrolled transitions and in turn uncontrolled potential zone entries as well. So the importance of zone exits can link together a lot of the team's 200-foot game in general and can link together the whole output, not only defensively, but also offensively as well. And so one of the first components in talking about the ability to create zone exits is the center role and how important the center is at being able to link together everything, because there's times where there's going to be G to D passes. The center's going to need to swing under and swing through to be able to support low and support the defenseman. There's also times where there's going to be pucks moved up the half wall, and that winger has to be aware. It could be strong side or weak side half wall, usually a strong side. If there's a D to D pass and it's moving up the wall, they're likely going to try to move up the strong side half wall as soon as possible and then try to kick that puck to middle ice through that swinging center, ideally. And so, in talking about the center's able to link together a lot of different components in terms of being able to create sustainable zone exits and the importance of being able to create those and being able to create those controlled breakouts off those D to D passes, those half wall bumps, kickouts, and the overall importance of being involved overall as a center in those different situations and being able to create sustained possession of ice obviously has a lot of different benefits. So that's really important. And also in talking about breakouts and their importance when it comes to rush patterning and offensive structure and how they're able to create lanes in open ice by using exits to transition entries faster. And so when talking about breakouts and the importance of breakouts and how they're able to create rush patterns, the more dynamic a breakout is and the more controlled a breakout is, it's going to translate at a little bit better quality and a little bit better rate in terms of that rush patterning development and the ability to attack on line rush sequences and also being able to attack off those zone entry sequences as well. So mid lane driving is a big emphasis in terms of zone exits and talking about zone exits as well, because being able to mid lane drive, it's not only as a center, but being able to create middle possessions and into your space possessions is so prominent and so important in talking about zone exits and the ability to exit with control, exit with pace, exit with purpose, and exit with all around efficiency as well. And mid lane driving, there's obviously a lot of emphasis on that from coaches within the league, and there's been a lot of emphasis with mid lane driving in a lot of different situations. You see it on ozone play, for example, where the player usually, if they kick out on entry, they're usually taught to mid lane drive and continue the route towards the net and not stop all the way through, but usually stop around that net area. And it's a similar thing on exits as well. So say if there's a kick out on an exit to one of the wingers, there's still going to be mid lane drive emphasis from that center being able to control the play. If they sprint up ice and mid lane drive, they're going to create and more likely have the ability to create a better off puck spacing element when it comes to the center in that role in that mid lane driving sequence as well. And another big thing, we talked briefly about this yesterday in the neutral zone playmaking episode with the emphasis on speed differential. And we use Connor McDavid and Nathan Kinnan as examples and how they're able to create speed differentials in their favor, aka positive speed differential is the terminology, where they have more speed in favor of themselves compared to the defenseman, who the defenseman is not able to match that speed so easily. So the importance of using speed differentials can create very efficient exits and also can disrupt not only the ozone forecheck, but the forecheck sequence in general with that as well. And the importance of using speed differentials can really distinctify a team in terms of how they're able to attack and how they're able to create offense in those situations as well. And so by using speed differentials, for example, this increases the likelihood of being able to create controlled entries if controlled exits get manipulated in that sense as well, because being able to create controlled entries, a lot of emphasis nowadays is on speed, being able to create those swing throughs, overlaps, swing unders, whatever it may be, to be able to try and create dynamic ways and dynamic forms of route timing and route awareness on entries, but also on exits is really important as well, to be able to exit the zone with efficiency. Usually teams like to move north more on exits than entries, because moving north on exits, you're able to get a distinct way to get out of the zone. And teams like to get out of the zone as quick as they can. And compared to the offensive zone, where there's a little bit more manipulation, deception involved when trying to create the setup, and not only on the entry and inside the offensive zone, but leading up to the net. Compared to exits, you're likely, especially as a defenseman, to want to move that puck up north to try and get out of the own end as soon as possible. Because if the defenseman forces a turnover and the puck stays inside the zone off their outlet pass and misjudge outlet pass, then it creates a lot of different critics in that sense, because of how the defenseman wasn't able to get out of the zone, wasn't able to pass that puck out of the zone. So there's more emphasis on the defenseman in those situations to try and create exits and sustained exits and controlled exits and possession exits to be able to link together the other parts of the sequence as well. And so there's a lot of emphasis on being able to create controlled exits, especially as a defenseman nowadays, where you see guys like Quinn Hughes, there's Cale Makar, there's Roman Josi, there's Victor Hedman, there's a lot of other guys within the league, and a lot of modern day style defensemen, some of which are older, but they still play a modern style game, where the efficiency of their zone exits usually links together better in terms of how they're able to transition the puck and how they're able to gain offensive zone entry. So when you look at a player like Roman Josi and his ability on exits to not only create middle space and attack middle space, but the ability to use his vision off the wall and maintain that heads up awareness, similar to Quinn Hughes. Quinn Hughes is really elite at maintaining that heads up awareness, where he's not looking down at the puck. He's always got his eyes up and it's eye level to the ice. That way he's able to understand processing speed and ice geography. He's able to understand the different components that go into the nuances and the subtle little plays within the breakout. So those are important emphasis points when talking about Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi, is how they maintain their vision and they maintain their heads up awareness. Two very strong and key components to where they're able to manipulate the game in their favor, because they understand those components. They understand how to utilize their vision. They understand how to utilize that. And it becomes so much more important for them to be able to transition pucks with efficiency, because they understand that heads up awareness to be able to not only beat plays and beat players on the exit, but inside the neutral zone forecheck, where they can beat neutral zone forechecks in transition sequences as well. So there's a lot of emphasis on transition control, efficiency, ability to break pucks out through carries and passes. And there's a lot of translatability, especially when talking about defensemen, how they can translate those components not only in exits, but inside their offensive zone play. And usually, if they have multiple elements inside their exit play, that allows them to generate controlled possessions and controlled sequences more efficiently, than their offensive zone play more likely than not has the ability and some similar level of ability when talking and comparing back to their exit play as well. So defensemen, it's really important for them, especially to be able to exit the zone and exit with control. And those defenders who aren't able to exit the zone with control, especially through carry play, is it's much harder for them to generate in transition coming through the offensive zone right away, because some of those defensemen don't understand manipulation, deception. They might just look to move pucks and outlet pucks north when it's forced into a bad area, and then they might have to defend a transition against right away, which creates chaos and creates confusion and creates more defensive play and more defensive zone time, which teams don't want to deal with all the time, especially defensemen. So, and when talking about zone exits as a defensive team, there's a lot more emphasis on being able to kill exits through D1 and D2 and the activity of D1 and D2. Not only, mostly the strong side D, because the strong side D has the ability to pinch and be able to activate up the wall to try and close on pucks and try to keep plays alive within the zone, rim pucks around the O zone in those situations where they're trying to hold the line and make sure that the puck doesn't get out of the zone, and they can maintain that offensive zone time for their whole team and their whole structure within the team as well. And so the importance of holding the blue line, especially defensemen who are trying to defend exits and not allow the opposing team to generate those controlled exits and generate efficiency within possession on their zone exits, So the emphasis of holding the line becomes more important. You see that there's a lot of modern day emphasis on that. We're holding a line. You see it not only on neutral zone, blue lines, and the lines inside the neutral zone in general, where players are sometimes taught to hold the line. Defensemen are more likely than not and more often being told to hold the line more often nowadays. So the importance of being able to kill exits as a defensive team can really allow for sustained zone possession and really allow the team to get fatigue in their zone as well. And again, the active strong side D is a really important factor when talking about how to keep plays alive and not allow easy exits with possession. For example, if that strong side D pinches, there's a likelihood, and especially if they pinch, not only pinch, but mistime the pinch, or they mistime the body position element, or they mistime their route to the puck, or mistime the spacing element, whatever it may be, then that can create a 2-on-1 sequence going the other way in transition. That creates a controlled exit and a controlled entry because of that 2-on-1 sequence. And the strong side D becomes really important because it could either make or break a play. So having that active forecheck involvement, that active involvement from the D is really important. And so we talked about a lot of different emphasis points when talking about controlled exits. Obviously, being able to control pucks and being able to create sustained possessions is one of the main reasons why controlled exits are so sustainable in terms of offensive output and not only exit output, but offensive output in general. And uncontrolled exits are also really prominent because you're looking at how many uncontrolled exits usually link together to uncontrolled entries and uncontrolled transition play, where transition play is a little flimsy and it might be harder transition bucks. And some teams have a harder time getting out of their zone than others. And some of them don't have prominent puck carriers to be able to drive that transition play, drive exit play, and they don't have prominent defensemen to be able to drive exit play as well. And passing exits are really important, especially as a defenseman, where being able to pass the puck, outlet the puck effectively across that blue line coming out of the D zone is so prominent for defensemen to be able to have, keep pucks fly on the ice, another translatable habit. Keeping pucks flat, being able to keep passes accurate, where passes can be led into space for their teammates and they can allow sustainability in that sense. And then carry exits as well. And we talked a lot about carry plays and carry exits in general. And Roman Yossi, how he's able to carry the puck on exits, how he's able to carry that and link that together with his transition play inside the neutral zone and then his offensive zone play and offensive entry play, controlled entry play, whatever it's called and whatever it can be called. And Roman Yossi and Quinn Hughes are two really good examples of that in the modern day. Kale McCarr is another really good example as a defenseman. So a lot of different emphasis points when talking about carry exits and the importance of being able to create sustainability within a team and not only just carrying the puck, but also being able to carry the puck up the middle of the ice is so important to be able to have that quality and to be able to have that in so many different waves for teams as well.